Hi, it's Tim Guy again, showing a different app now called Nearpod, which I think is a pretty cool program. There's a lot of things you can do in here, so I'm going to show just a little bit of this. One of the big things I touched on in my last video, I didn't really call it out by name, so I want to make sure I do that here before I forget, and now my brain's not working, and I'm forgetting what it's called, is this first idea about, or the last thing on here, the social presence idea. So one of the big things about social presence is kind of building that community. If you look here in the book where it talks about social presence, if I kind of go back to that section, one of the big things about social presence is you want to make sure that your students are really involved in the community, okay, and being part of what's going on in the classroom. It says right here how much they're being a part of the community and what they're doing. And in a math classroom, that especially is important because you want your students to be willing to show their work. You want students to be willing to have other students look at their work. You want them to collaborate that way. That's really the best way to get better at math, is to teach each other math and to check each other's work and to fix problems and things. And that's one of the big things. And the last thing I showed you, the classroom kick, or the class kick, I think it does a nice job of that. Nearpod has some of that going on with it as well. This is a program you can find online. It's a website. There's a free version of this that does almost everything. There's going to be one thing I'm going to show you that you can't do in the free version that you have to pay for. But otherwise, it's pretty much like a lot of the apps where it's free for the most part, and then there's some things you have to pay for. But if we're going into this, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at what this program can do. Basically, this is kind of similar to a little bit like the classroom kick, but does a couple things a little bit differently. I like this one more for synchronous lessons versus asynchronous. So for the class kick, what's kind of nice about that one is you kind of have students go off on their own, and they can go ahead and kind of help each other out whenever they feel like it. This one I kind of like is more almost like a collaborative sort of whiteboard sort of activity. And actually, if we look at the book here, I know I keep bringing the book up. I have it right on my computer, so it's kind of nice to pull it up and kind of connect back to what we're looking at. But if we go to that table in 5.3 about the different kind of activities, this would fit right in here, if I could find it, with the kind of synchronous whiteboard. I thought it was on this page. Of course, now I'm not talking in a video, and that's horrible. Well, I can't see it. I don't know what I did. You're probably all looking at it and yelling at me like, there it is. Right here, shared whiteboard. So kind of a problem-solving kind of thing. And this is one of the coolest things I like about Nearpod is that it is a shared whiteboard. However, it is each student kind of gets their own whiteboard to use, and then they get to I get to pick different selections for them to work on. And kind of what this does, is similar to Classroom Kick, is that you can really show each student, kind of build that community of, we're all going to make mistakes. Here's how you fix mistakes, what you should be looking for. Here's what you need to look out for. And kind of build that with the students to have them feel more comfortable with each other in the classroom. Some of the cool things you can do, let's just take a look so you actually know what I'm talking about here. So first off, the free portion only lets you do the synchronous lessons. So asynchronous lessons you can't do with that. So what you can do is that when you go to make one of these, if I make a new Nearpod activity, and I'll show you what I made too in a second. What you're allowed to do is you can basically kind of add slides, and there's a lot of different options about what you can put on. Okay, got it, new things. Okay, a lot of different things you can do. So first off, you can add an activity where you can put some questions for them to answer. You can put a draw it, which is like a whiteboard for them to do different things on. You can put a poll where they can poll. You can do a poll and kind of show the kids what the poll responses were. Different sort of things like that. So this is kind of a way for you to really check students' learning, check for mastery and things like that. What's also cool is that you can also add content into here. So you can add some slides that you have made. You can add in some different sort of activities in here, put some links in here. The web content lets you add in, it's a premium feature. It's another thing you can add in. But when you have premium, which on my other account I do, you can add in some website links and things like that. One of the coolest things you can do, especially if you're like either in an elementary classroom or other things, is they have these virtual field trips you can actually take students on. That's also, I should be logged into my other account, but Also a premium feature, but my mom actually uses it all the time, where you can actually, has different places you can go, different things you can do as a class, and kind of look through different things. So actually, when she teaches the skeletal system, they actually have a skeleton where kids can kind of, on their individual devices, go through and kind of like explore through the skeleton, all the different bones and things. You say, all right, look at the hip bone, and they can kind of scroll through and kind of find where the hip bone is. So if you have a one-to-one classroom or a flipped classroom, it's kind of a cool activity that students can do and that you guys can work on together. And if you're doing online teaching, everybody on their own computer can kind of look through similar things as you while you're going through. What's really cool, though, is once you kind of set up your slides and things, you then can go ahead and have students go through and and work together on different things. So I have some, if I go here to the live lesson. So this is something you would post this link either in your Google Classroom, or if you want to email it to students, wherever, they get logged in with their code. And then on your screen, you actually get to see all the different students, what they're working on their like whiteboard or whatever when they're working on the problems. So if I go, let's see, YQVTJ, let's see if I remember that. And again, to find this website, I just always Google it. And then they click right here, student login. I've already forgot what the login code was. YQVTJ. Okay, it logs me in. I'm Timothy Guy, sure. Okay, so this is what they see on their screen. So for this one, it was a factoring thing. So I gave the students directions in class. Obviously, if you're using it as online, you can add whatever you want on here. So I would go through and I can write on here, all right, let's see, if I want to factor this, we have to multiply to -12, but add the 6, I think it's, or add the 4, I think it's going to be +6, and -2, okay, equals 0. Solve my problem, x plus 2, x equals 2, sorry, and x equals -6. Awesome. We factored, we solved. Pretty cool. All right, we go ahead and we hit send down here. Although it looks like my face is getting in the way. Let me move me out of the way. There we go. Okay, so we hit send, and there we go. Now we send it. Now, as the teacher on my side, I can see, and obviously we have students here, we see them, I can see all the students who submitted. And what's really cool about this one is that beyond just seeing what all the students are doing and checking or whatever, you can share anonymously things that students have done with the other students. So I can click on this, I can hit share, and then this pumps out to everybody who's in the class at the time. So what I like to do when we're doing this synchronously in the classroom is I'll have the students do this or whatever, and they're doing their activity, blah, 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 answering the question. And then I'll pump one out and I'll say, hey, guys, this is exemplary work. Let's go through and let's see all the steps they did. And we'll go through and we'll look at, all right, here's what they did here, here's what they did here, this is awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then after we do that, I'll pull up another student. I'll say, hey, this one's got a little mistake in it. There's a problem that I see 6 or 7 of you making. Okay, where do you see the mistake? Anybody catch the mistake? And it's then the student's responsibility to go on and try to figure out what the mistake is. And what this really does is it gives a lot of collaboration. The students are checking each other's work, checking their own work. They're communicating with each other. Obviously in an online classroom, you have everybody with their microphones. You may split them into small groups to kind of talk about what's wrong. In my classroom, I have them talk to the table about what's going on. And it really is just a cool collaboration tool for them to kind of work on and kind of problem solve. Right? What's weird about this one? What's wrong with this one? And that's really just this whiteboard part is just one aspect of the entire program. Again, some of the other cool things you can do, especially if you're either trying to flip your classroom or even just designing lessons, is kind of embedding those videos, we're not going to resume this lesson. Embedding videos, embedding those field trips, different cool things you can do. Like here's one I've done a little bit more. It's got a little more stuff going on with it, although I might want to, instead of, so you can see, like, I have a video embedded in here for students to watch. I have some problems for them to do. And this one would be more of an asynchronous. Here's a poll, so students can do a poll. We can say, hey, look, all the students are getting A for this, and it's actually supposed to be B. What's going on here? So there's a lot of really cool collaborative tools and ways to check for mastery, as well as have students problem solve while they're working throughout. And you can link other things in here. Like here I have a educations video I made. I linked in here. You can have some, students make their own video and link them in here. I've had students make Nearpod activities for each other and use that as sort of a check for mastery idea. Like, hey, make me a Nearpod, have me do one, and we can have the class work on it. And it really is cool. The kids really do like this activity and really like using this. If you guys have seen this video before, it's pretty funny. It's kind of a graph rap song. But yeah, this is a really cool program. I really like the power that Nearpod has. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. In terms of teaching my last lesson using this, so one of the things that I would do, and I actually did do when I taught that lesson in the classroom, is you can use this as a check for understanding. So I can put different problems on here that involve solving rational functions, the different parts that they need to solve rational functions. Further down the line in that unit, they have to be able to solve the numerator and the denominator. I'm getting an email here. Solve the numerator and denominator for 0. Actually, some of this factoring things that I just showed here, I have my students doing here to kind of build them up towards that lesson and sort of do some of that collaboration. This is definitely an activity I do synchronously in class. I'm just kind of like a replacement for whiteboards, but a little more communicative, a little better to kind of have the students interacting with each other. Hey, here's what a student did. Let's try to fix the mistake. Here's a problem that you guys are all having. I picked this example because everybody seems to be making this mistake. Let's try to fix it together so that when we look at the next one, we know what's going on. And I found great success with this. I think it's pretty powerful. It's a pretty awesome tool, to be honest, especially in a regular classroom or an online classroom. This could be very successful. Now I've only scratched the surface on here. Again, this is a free program for the most part. If you want to get to some of the even more powerful things, so the student-paced stuff, some of the web links, you have to have the premium version. But honestly, if you have a one-to-one implementation in your school, this would be a program I would be looking for. So that's Nearpod.